Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now we are beginning Unit 3, which is called a second, which means housing. And in this unit, we're going to be talking about some grammatical concepts such as adjectives, which is known as sifa, al-irafa, and counting numbers. And from now on, we might be getting a little more technical, and I would expect you to pay more attention because we are going to be going at the same regular pace of one unit per week, so that requires a lot of attention from you and some review from you outside of class as well. But I'm going to try to keep it at a reasonable amount so that it's not overwhelming. So the first conversation is, I'll read it again, as usual. I'll read it and translate it. It's between Ahmed and Hassan. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Wa alaikum assalam. And upon you be peace. أين تسكنون? Where do you live? أسكن في حي المطار. I live in the district of the airport. وأين تسكن أنت? And where do you live? Yourself. أسكن في حي الجامعة. I live in the university district. هل تسكن في بيت? Do you live in a house? نعم أسكن في بيت. Yes, I live in a house. هل تسكن في بيت? Do you live in a house? لا أسكن في بيت شقة. I live in an apartment. ما رقم شقتك? What is the number of your apartment? 5. ما رقم بيتك? 5. 9. So we see the conversation. We see some new words here. The first one is yaskunu, which is another verb to add to our repertoire. We already have studied the word yusalli and yaqra'u and yatawadda. Now this is a new word, yaskunu. And note that every verb that we're doing right now is in the present tense. So yaskunu means he lives. And we see here Ahmed asking Hassan, Aina taskunu? Where do you live? So he replaced the ya with a ta. And the reply was Askunu fi hayy al-matar. Askunu is I live. So now we know how to say how to translate a word in action 4 different ways. Yaskunu, where he lives. Taskunu, you live. Askunu, I live. And if you're talking about a female, we would also use ta for her. So hiya taskunu, anta taskunu, ana askunu, and huwa yaskunu. Hayy means district, matar means airport. So if you put them together, it becomes hayy al-matar. And as I said before, whenever you put two words together, it makes an of relationship between them. And the second word of the of relationship would have a kasra at the end, which is why you see a kasra at the end of al-matar. Jamia is university, so you should know what Hayy al-Jamia means. Then, if Hayy al-Matar means the district of the airport, then Hayy al-Jamia means the university district. Bayt means house, and Shaqqa means apartment. Raqm means number. So now, when Ahmed asked, ما رقم شقتك? He is compounding the of relationships, because we have raqm, we have shaqqa, and we have the pronoun ka. So that's 3 words.
That's your charger.
So he has compounded the words so that the meaning is, what is the number of the house of you? And this is how we can chain relationships in the Arabic, simply by adding nouns to each other in sequence without any break in between them. And we will have some grammatical rules for this relationship. It is called al-irafa. Irafa. The second conversation is between a renter and a landlord. The word al-mustajir is the renter, and the landlord is al-mu'ajjir. So I'll read the conversation. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. أريد شقة من فضلك. لدينا شقة جميلة. كم غرفة في الشقة؟ في الشقة 5 غرف. في أي دور هي الشقة؟ الشقة في الدور الخامس. أريد مشاهدة الشقة. تفضل. هذه هي الشقة. هذه شقة جميلة. And the translation is أريد شقة, I want an apartment. من فضلك, please. لدينا شقة جميلة. We have a beautiful apartment. كم غرفة في الشقة? How many rooms are in the apartment? في الشقة 5 غرف. There are 5 rooms in the apartment. في أي دور الشقة? And which floor is the apartment? الشقة في الدور الخامس. The apartment is on the 5th floor. أريد مشاهدة الشقة. I want to view the apartment. تفضل. Help yourself. هذه هي الشقة. This is the apartment. هذه شقة جميلة. This is a beautiful apartment. So we see a new action, a new verb is يريد. يريد means he wants. And al-mustajir, the renter, he said أريد because he's talking about himself. I want. So, and notice how the vowel didn't change, only the first letter changed. That is from ya to hamza. And then he says min fadlik. Min fadlika literally means from your favor. Fadl means favor or something that you would add on to something else. So min fadlika literally means from your favor, and it has the meaning of if you please. And the landlord says لدينا شقة جميلة. لدى means with, and لدينا is with us. Now if you notice, lada does not have a ya originally. It has something called an alif maqsura. It's an alif and it's written like a ya without 2 dots. And whenever you connect an alif maqsura with a letter immediately after it, that alif maqsura becomes converted into a ya before adding the suffix na for us. So it would be going from lada to ladai to ladayna to mean we have or with us. Jamil is a word for beautiful, but he said ladayna shaqqatun jamila because the word shaqqa is feminine grammatically. In Arabic, when we have an adjective, we have to match the adjective in gender, as well as 3 other properties, as we will see later on in the course. The renter says, Kam ghurfatan fi shaqqa. Kam ghurfa means how many rooms. And when we ask, this is the way to ask, you use the word kam, how many, and the word after it will have fatha. And this is a grammatical rule. That instead of having a dhamma, the word after the word kam will have fatha. And you use a singular version of the word ghurfa. Kam ghurfatan fi shaqqa. How many rooms are in the apartment? And the landlord replies with the plural. في الشقة 5 غرف. There are 5 rooms in the apartment. So I hope you've been paying attention to your numbers 1 through 10 from Unit 1 and Unit 2. 1 2 5 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Those are the numbers 1 through 10. Now he asks, في أي دور الشقة. In which floor or on which floor is the apartment? And remember, fi is normally translated as in, but sometimes it takes other meaning depending on the context. So we could say here fi means on which. Fi أي which دور الشقة. في أي دور الشقة, which on which floor is the apartment? The landlord replies الشقة في الدور الخامس. الدور الخامس means the fifth floor. So we see the difference between خمسة and خامس. So خمسة, it would be the actual number. In English we call this the cardinal number. The cardinal number. And خامس would be the ordinal number. That is what you use for counting in order. So 1, 2, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So, and words that the ordinal numbers, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc., they have the pattern فاعل. So الثاني الثالث الرابع الخامس السادس السابع الثامن التاسع العاشر, and so on. Now the landlord says, I want to view the apartment. Mushahada is the noun for yushahidu. Yushahidu means he's viewing. Mushahada is the actual act of viewing. So it's not an action. It's a noun without time. It's the act of viewing. So I want to view the apartment. And mushahada has a fatha on it. Why? Because it is the detail of an action, which is it is the detail of uridu. What do I want? I want to view. And I want us to get in the mindset that whenever we see a fatha or a kasra, we should ask ourselves, why did I have a fatha or a kasra? Because we know that the default state of an ism, a noun, is that it's to have a dhamma. So if we see something else other than the end of a dhamma at the end of a word, we should think, why did I have it? And then he said, mushahada shaqqa. And if you see the last letter of shaqqa, of shaqqa, is that it had a kasra. Why? Because he changed mushahada and ashaqqa. And so that means that I want the viewing of the apartment. And we will see that whenever you have something of relationship, the second word takes a kasra at the end. The landlord says, tafaddal, help yourself. And then he said, هذه هي الشقة. This is the apartment, and this is how we've been talking before. هذه هي الشقة. هذه هي النظارة. هذه شقة جميلة. And the renter says, this is a beautiful apartment. The third conversation is between a buyer and a seller. Al-Mushtari is the customer or buyer, and Al-Ba'i' is the salesman or seller. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. أي خدمة? Which service? أريد بعض الأثاث. أريد بعض الأثاث. I want some furniture. ماذا تريد لغرفة النوم? What do you want for the bedroom? أريد سريرا وستارة. I want a bed and curtain. I want a bed and a curtain. وماذا تريد لغرفة الجلوس? And what do you want for the living room or sitting room? أريد أريكة وسجادة. I want a couch and a prayer rug or carpet. وماذا تريد للمطبخ? And what do you want for the kitchen? أريد فرنا وثلاجة. I want a stove and a fridge. وماذا تريد للحمام? And what do you want for the washroom? أريد سخانا ومرآة. I want a heater and a mirror. أريد مشاهدة الأثاث. أريد مشاهدة الأثاث. I want to view the furniture. تفضل. Help yourself. So something I want to note here. The seller says in picture number 2, أي خدمة. So he said أي. So أي was a fatha on it. And if you saw in the previous conversation, the renter said في أي instead of أي. أيو. And we know that في أي is because في is one of those words that always makes the word after it take a kasra. Here we see أي خدمة. And we don't see anything before it. And what happened is there's a fatha there, but we don't see anything apparently makes it take a fatha. And the reason why is that there is an implied action here, and that is, what service do you want? Or what service do you want? So ayya khidma, ayya is the detail of an implied action here. That is the action of wanting or requesting. Khidma means service, and ayya khidma is the structure, the idafa structure, the of structure. So it's the second word of the of relationship, and that's why it had a kasra. And similarly, uridu ba'd al-atat. I want some furniture. So ba'd is a word very commonly used in Arabic to mean some. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it many times in the Quran. Ba'dukum min ba'd. Some of you from some. Atat is furniture. The seller says, Mada. Mada is another word for what? Another way to say ask what? Mada. We've seen ma. Now we see mada. Mada turidu. What do you want? Instead of saying uridu, he says turidu because he's talking to the buyer, and he's asking the buyer, what do you want? Li gurfatin nom. We see that the letter lam at the beginning of gurfa is a particle or harf that means for. Li gurfa means for the room, an-nom. Li gurfatin nom, for the bed, for the room of sleeping. An-nom means sleeping. So the room of sleeping literally means the gurfatin nom means the room of sleeping, which we call the bedroom. So Gurfa had a kasra because of the letter lam at the beginning, which means for. And unknown had a kasra at the end because of ab. Li Gurfatin nom, the room of sleeping. He says, Uridu sariram wa shitara. I want a bed and a curtain. Gurfatin julus. Julus is sitting. So Gurfatin julus is the sitting room or the living room. And Arika, the couch, and the plural for Arika is Ara'ik. You might have heard that word in the Quran before. Where sajjada is either a carpet or a prayer rug. And then matbakh is the kitchen. So what do you want for the kitchen? He said, I want a farn and thallaja. Farn is a stove and thallaja is a fridge. Hammam, we know that it's a washroom from unit 2. Sakhanan. Sakhan is a water boiler, water heater. Mir'at is a mirror. a mirror. And the buyer said, I want to view the furniture. The seller says, Tafaddal. Okay, so now we're gonna get into some concepts here before we move on. And I want to talk about Arab, Irapa, counting numbers, and how to do some conjugation of some verbs. Because I think that we need to slow down just a little bit before we move on. So, firstly, Al-Arab. I'rab means grammatical state, and it's talking about the changing in the endings of words due to various influences that you find. So that means that every noun or ism has something called i'rab due to various factors that come together. And a noun can only have one of three grammatical states. And the first one is rafa'in. Second one is nasab, nun sad ba, and third one is jar, jim with a ra and a shadda on it. And raf is the default state. And the sign of an ism being raf is that it has a dhamma at the end. The sign that it has nasab is that it has a fatha at the end. And the sign of jar is that the noun has a kasra at the end. And we have been dabbling in some of this before when I've been talking about why some nouns have a kasra and why some nouns have a fatha in it. So if you see something, an ism that has something other than a default state, then you have to ask yourself what is causing the state to change. So we've seen some various factors already. We have seen that when a noun is a detail of an action, it will take nasab. The only exception being is that when the noun is the doer of the action, then it will stay in raf. But for all the other actions, detailed of the action, it will take on the nasab status. A kasra, we've seen that there are some letters or some words that force the word after them to take kasra, like bi, min, li, bi, etc. Another reason that will cause a noun to have kasra and be in jar state is when it is the second word of the of relationship, which is known as idafa, which is the second thing I want to talk about. Idafa is when you put two words and you add them together. That's literally what idafa means, addition. So you hear sometime you hear idafatan ila dhalik, that because additionally to that. So then it had two nouns. The first noun we call it the mudaf, that is what was added, and the second one will be al mudaf ilay, what was added to. So don't worry about the technical terms right now, but just know that in the idafa structure you have two nouns, and one of them is what you're adding, and the second one is what you're adding to. And some rules for this is that the first noun cannot have an alif lam at the end of it, at the beginning, and it cannot have the final noon sound. And what I mean is by that is that if you have seen the tanween, un, an, in, where that final noon sound, the sound, goes away when you are making it when you're making it into the mudaf, when you're adding it to another noun. For example, the word mushahada originally is mushahadatun. Now, if you want to say viewing the furniture, you would take off the n sound from mushahada, and it would be mushahadatul atat. And the next rule is that for the second noun, which is the mudaf ilay, it is in the jar state, and it will have a kasra at the end of it because of that. So that's why you see mushahadat al-atati, mushahadat al-ghurfati. And you can chain them. You can chain the idafa together, as we saw in the first conversation, when Ahmed said, ما رقم شقتك. رقم is a muraf. شقتي is the muraf ilayh for that word. That's why it had a kasra at the end, at the beginning, at the ta. Shaqati, because it is muraf ilayh. It is the second word in the of relationship for raqmu. Now shaqatik is another idafa, so it's a structure of its own, and does that mean that a mudaf ilayh can in turn be a mudaf for another idafa structure? So ma raqmu shaqqatik, raqmu shaqqa is one idafa, shaqqatika is another idafa, and ka which is you or your. So you would have the number of the apartment of you. Another thing is how to count between numbers, how to count numbers, objects. Uh, the rule for counting between 3 to 10 objects is that first of all, the number itself has to oppose the thing that you're counting in gender. So if you're counting rooms, the word for room is ghurfa, which is feminine. So that means that when you're counting 3 to 10 rooms, you cannot say talatatu, because the numbers we have, as we have learned them, are feminine because of the ta maburta at the end. So what you have to do is you have to take off the ta to make it feminine, to make it masculine. So it's a little tricky. This is something that it still gives us a little hard time, but it's how the Arabs speak, and that is that when you're counting between 3 and 10, the number differs, it disagrees with the thing that you're counting in gender. So ghurfa is feminine, so you use the masculine version of the number. So to say 3 rooms, you would say ثلاث غرف, أربع غرف, خمس غرف, ست غرف, سبع غرف, ثماني غرف, ثماني غرف, تسع غرف, عشر غرف. Now, from Unit 1, as we learned the numbers, that they were counting pens, and the word for pen is qalam. So that's a masculine word. So that's why, of course, you would still use the default feminine version of the numbers. ثلاثة أقلام, أربعة أقلام, خمسة أقلام, ستة أقلام, سبعة أقلام, ثمانية أقلام, تسعة أقلام, عشرة أقلام. Aqlam with the plural of pen. So that's the second point I want to make, is that the thing that you're counting, you put a plural on the end. And it has a kasra at the end because this is an idafa structure. So it would be 3 of pens, 4 of pens, 6 of rooms, etc. Ordinal numbers. That's counting, how to count in order. So first, second, third, fourth. So khamsa become khamis. So I will say the numbers, the ordinal numbers from 1 to 10. الأول, الثاني, الثالث, الرابع, الخامس, السادس, السابع, الثامن, التاسع, العاشر. And to make it feminine, from 3 to 10, or from 2 to 10, you just add a ta marbuta. الثانية, الثالثة, الرابعة, الخامسة, السادسة, السابعة, الثامنة, التاسعة, العاشرة. To say the first, masculine is الأول and feminine is الأولى. Next point is الصفة, the adjective must match the mawsuf, the described thing that you are talking about in gender. So the example we have seen so far is Jamil. Jamil is a sifa, it's a description, but it has to match the described thing in gender. So that's why it goes from Jamil to Jamila. because the word ghurfa is feminine. And the last point I wanted to make on this slide is that when it comes to present tense actions, they always start with one of four letters. Ya, ta, hamza, or nun. And that never changes. It can only be one of these four letters. And we have seen how we can switch between different meanings just by changing the letter. So, for example, yuridu, to say he wants, yuridu. To say you want, when you're talking to a singular masculine, you would say turidu. To say she wants, you would also say turidu. So that's something you have to pick up on. That when you put a ta at the front, it can mean more than one meaning, but it's based on the context. To say I want, you say uridu, and to say we want, nuridu. And the only thing that changes is the letter, not the vowel on the first letter. The vowel on the first letter stays the same. Yuridu, turidu, uridu, nuridu. Yusalli, tusalli, usalli, nusalli. Yatawadda, tatawadda, atawadda, natawadda. Yakra'u, taqra'u, aqra'u, naqra'u, and so on. Lesson 14 starts on page 52, and I will quickly go through the pictures and the words. Bait, house. Shaqqa, apartment. Door, floor. Hay, district. Ghurfa, room. Ghuraf, rooms. Ghurfatun Nom, the bedroom. Ghurfatun Julus, the sitting room. Matbakh, kitchen. Raqm, number. Athat, furniture. Sarir, bed. Sitara, curtain. Arika, couch. Sajjada, prayer rug or carpet. Furn, stove. Thalaja, fridge. Sakhan, boiler. Mir'at, mirror. And the exercises on page 53 to connect between the piece of furniture and the place that it belongs, that you find it in. That is, and the second example, point to the picture that you hear the name of. And on page 54, we see days of the week. There are 7 days in the week in Arabic, just like there are in English. So, if you read across from the top column, Accept is the Saturday, Al-Ahad, Sunday, Al-Ithnain, Monday, Al-Thulatha. Al-Thulatha is when Tuesday, or Al-Riyah, Wednesday, Al-Khamis, Thursday, Al-Jumu'ah, Friday. So we see that the week here begins on Saturday for them. The first day of the week begins Saturday, and the weekend starts on Al-Yawm Jumu'ah. That's the day off. And that's why if you go to the Middle Eastern countries, the weekend is usually instead of having Saturday or Sunday, they will have Friday and another day. And on page 54, the first exercise, you complete the days of the week, just like they are in the top row of the calendar for the month of Muharram. And then the second exercise is you arrange the days of the week in order. The third exercise is you point to the day that you hear the name of. Lesson 15, grammatical structures. So the first exercise is asking where do you live in a house? Naam, askanu fi bayt. Yes, I live in a house. So exchange the question and answer with your colleague in the example. Second exercise is saying that you want something from somebody's favor. So uridu shaqqatan min fadlik. I want an apartment, if you please. You would say the same thing for thalada, sajjada, sitara, etc. Next page, on page 52, 56. Uh, this one is asking, do you live in a house? No, I live in an apartment. You live in the university district? No, I live in the airport district, etc. And exercise 4, exchanging question and answer with your colleague, asking what do you want for a certain room, and you would reply that you want a certain piece of furniture for that. Lesson 16 is about sounds and understanding heard speech. So on page 59, we go into the differences between the letters ha and ha. And they both have running of the breath, so that if you put your hand in front of your mouth, you should feel some air coming out when you pronounce them. So you would ha and ha. And both of them, you keep the tongue low. They are not awesome letters. So you will not say ha or ha. So keep the tongue low, ha and ha. And they are both throat letters, but except the ha comes from the lower part of the throat, and ha comes from the middle of the throat, right above the letter ain, and ha comes above in is higher than the letter hamza. And a useful trick to remember is a little rhyme: hamza ha, ain ha, wain kha. These are the 6 letters of the throats, and that's how you can keep the articulation points in order. So for exercises 1 to 3, 1, 2, and 3 on page 59, listen to the audio and repeat. On pages 60 and 61, listen to the exercises and then either put the number or the check mark in the appropriate boxes. Lesson 17 is the speaking part of the unit, and we normally do this on Thursdays. So be ready to know how to count both ordinal and cardinal. So ordinal first, second, third, fourth, fifth to 10th. Cardinal would be 1, 2, 3 to 10. And watch the ending sounds. So now we know that we have fatha and kasra at the end of nouns. So make sure that you keep those correct, because that's a very big part of proper speech. And also know how to convert between me, you, he, she for actions that we have learned. So make sure that you get used to conjugating these if you have time to prepare before Thursday. Lesson 18 is about reading and writing. So on pages 65 and 66, you should look, listen, and read the words, connect between the similar words. And page 66, you should look and listen and read along. So look at the picture, listen to the word, and then read the word underneath the picture. And on page 66, there are some questions at the end. I'm going to ask you in class to answer these questions in Arabic. So make sure you read exercise 4. And page 67 and page 68 are for writing for the letter Jim, Ha, Kha, Ain, and Wa. Line. So trace it with your pens, copy it, all the letters and all the words, because as part of this course, even though the course specializes in conversation, it's very important that we know how to write as well as read, because this will put us on the road to self-sufficiency in our studies and in our research. And that is the end of Unit 3. وقل قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.